In this second part, I'm going to guide you through my clumsy and haphazard process of designing my first game with pen and paper. I doubled my A4 paper with another one. I wanted more space to draw a very stylized haunted house, my setting for the game. I sketched the first large room. Because of its size and importance, I decided to give it 4 entrances. Not too far on the right, I drew another room, roughly a fourth the size of the first one, and gave it a door facing the first room. I knew there I wanted to draw a corridor connecting the rooms, and I did. Another small room immediately followed near the start of the map. I then decided to block one of the doors of the biggest room and turn it into a closet, because it was basically facing the wall and I did not want another stretchier connection to the start of the map. I will later do the same thing with the remaining 2 doors facing away from the main corridor. I then drew a 4th room of a 3rd size. I connected it to the corridor with a stretchy passage, and to add more complexity, I connected it to the room near the start with a secondary narrow passage. I started working on the second paper, which conveniently also became the second floor of the mansion. I started by sketching a triangle to represent the roof, then drew unnecessary details while I was thinking. All I could come up with was another big room upstairs, but for the sake of doing something a bit different and interesting, I divided it in 4 sections. I quickly added 3 more rooms upstairs and then proceeded to turn the 4-sectioned room in a clockwise circuit. I interconnected the 3 other rooms upstairs and then proceeded to create a slope, which forces the players to go back to one of the very first rooms downstairs. It was time to start placing elements on the board. I grabbed my post-its and very inconveniently started to cut them in smaller pieces of variable sizes. I don't recommend you to do this as it is extremely time-consuming. Perhaps you can do this before the design session if you believe you're going to use custom-sized removable items like that in your game. I wanted the sticky notes to hide traps and collectibles. I wanted the player to be able to access the roof attic at the top after he has collected a certain item. At this stage, I was considering to add some fighting mechanic to allow players to win each other's items over, but I ended up scrapping this idea, for now at least. One kind of items are coins. With coins, you buy access to doors, which is really stupid because coins which buy access to doors are just, keys. At least if they're single-use expendable items. Then I created a boss key, like in Zelda. I cut out slimmer figures to represent locks on doors. I created a skull card which will cause the players to die if they take it. If they die, they will lose their items. I decided that to win, the player has to enter the attic. I divided the main corridor in different squares, so the players can now move through according to what they roll. To achieve the final goal, you have first to collect key coins, hoping to avoid death traps. The idea is that every door lock has a value, and to open the door you're going to spend an equal amount of key coins. And, oh damn, here we are. The most stupid error that someone trying to design a game will ever make. How am I supposed to get the keys to open the door if the keys to open the door are behind said door? In my defense, the keys were originally intended to be coins, and I figured I could have found a different way to access the rooms. And so I did. Introducing the combination lock. To open the doors on the ground floor and finally get access to the very useful keys, you have to roll a dice and hope to get the same number that is displayed on the combination lock. Whenever a player is in front of a door with a combination lock, he or she can decide to roll the dice, either to move or to try their luck and see if they can get the right number and get in. From this point onward, most of the adjustments to the game have been made during my first playthrough, as expected by the challenge. I decided to make slightly different rules for the upper floor. The keys you collect in the lower floor are finally going to be used upstairs to get inside the rooms. The attic now also requires a plain and simple key to be accessed, but the boss key, or rather I should just call it master key, will now open the chest inside the attic. At this point, if the player acquires the master key, it triggers a pointless endgame, where only one player gets to run to the attic and to victory. I decided then that regardless of who acquires the master key, the chest will be automatically and instantly available to whichever player reached the attic from that point of the game onward, provided he has a spare key to open the door of the attic. This makes for an actual endgame that you can play with some degree of sense, but not so much balance. Indeed, the player who has just found the master key has a little disadvantage, since he has just spent a regular key to acquire the master key, and will need another one to access the attic. Other adjustments need to be made. The gameplay is still very frustrating. A player can be stuck very easily in front of a combination lock for several turns as they try to roll the right number to enter. Also, due to the limited space and dead-ended level design, it is easy to roll more than necessary, and so the player is required to bounce on the wall and turn back on its steps. Oftentimes this can be exploited to manipulate a high result into a lower desired one. This becomes problematic when the player is moving horizontally to a different room and it's not clear if they can endlessly bounce in and out of the room now open, just so they get the chance to interact with the next lock. If finding a skull causes death, and death causes you to lose your items, then most players might be disencouraged to keep playing after they have found one key and let the other player find a master key and risk losing their belongings, while they can safely wait for the final rush to the attic. When we unlock a room, it is not clear whether one can immediately step in or have to wait the next turn to do so. Also, when we move inside the rooms, it is unclear whether we have to roll the exact number to land on a square and collect the item, or we can roll any number, pass on several items and collect them. In the next part, we are going to try and fix these bugs and exploits. I hope you're gonna join me again for that one. I could really use your feedback. Until then, take care.